Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well because today we're talking about music, and today we have a live special guest outdoors on location. We have Mike Ladonna. How's it going today?
Good, thanks, Darcy. Glad to be back on your channel.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So today I invited you, not just because you're outdoors, but we'll be talking about this album here, AFI Sing with Sorrow, 2003. But before we get into that, you've been sharing some stuff on social media. I wonder if you have any other items you'd like to share with the class.
Sure, why not? This is kind of tangentially related to music, but I think you and I share something, which is we both have a passion for certain kinds of toy collecting,
Yeah.
and I love Transformers. Unfortunately, most of my Transformers are in a storage locker right now, and they're in a box that's like three layers in, and you know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I do have some up here at the lake with me, and what's more musical than a little tape deck.
A tape deck,
So I'm
perfect.
just going to take him out of the package because he is open. Um, Now, I don't know how much you know about Transformers, but in Generation 1, they had original Soundwave, the
Yes.
original
Yeah.
tape deck. This is not Soundwave. This is a Japanese reissue called Sound Blaster. And
Okay.
he's basically just a black reissue of Soundwave, but he's also slightly retooled so that he can hold two cassettes at once instead of just one. But there's your little tape deck
Amazing.
right there.
Awesome.
And these would have been considered back in the 80s, they called these micro cassettes. These are not the standard cassettes that we would have listened to, you and I, on our Walkman. But this is something that was a smaller cassette. This is scale. This is exactly the size of a micro cassette.
Mhm.
And they were used mostly for dictation, that kind of thing, like a reporter would,
Yeah.
or answering machines in the
Yeah.
80s, answering machines. So I'm just having some fun this afternoon playing with some toys, and that's never a bad thing, is it?
No, not at all. Yeah, I haven't gotten any for a while. I did pick up, got them over here. Da, 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 da. We've got this Power of the Force dewback, so 90, I guess 96 or so.
Yes.
Pretty fun. So that was a few months ago, I think, but that was my last one. So that was it. So the reason we're here, we talked about it, is we're going to talk about 2003's album by AFI, Sing the Sorrow, A Fire Inside. The reason I kind of wanted to do this video is it's an album I found while thrifting a while ago, a few weeks ago. And just, I was listening to it and very serendipitously, you put up a review of it on your website. And I thought this is perfect because you kind of also mentioned, you were next to this album, but not something you really were actively listening to at the time. And same for me, I was next to this album, but for one reason or another, I just kind of wrote off AFI. I guess I can get into that aspect. First, for me, I was into, the punk and the pop punk at the same time, early 2000s. And I think it was maybe their image, kind of that very gothic look, kind of maybe turned me off or at least kind of pushed me away, as well as their music. I wouldn't have thought about it this way then. It was probably too complex. I just wanted straight ahead, no rhythm changes, same tempo all the way through, very standard punk music, which this is not. And we'll get into that. But there's a little more depth. So, why do you talk about for you? How did this album come about for you?
I wish I knew for sure who introduced me to AFI, but I was working at I was managing a record store called The Beat Goes On from 1994 through to 2006. And this was 2003, close to the end of my tenure. And I was working at a location with a lot of younger people. I was also actually very active online at that time in different music communities and art communities and whatnot. And there was always younger people. At that point in my life, I was 30, so it
Mhm.
just seemed like everybody was younger than me at that point in life. And as you may remember, heavy metal was really heavily decimated in the early 90s by grunge. And there were a lot of bands that took a long time to bounce back. And in 2003, I was still exploring other kinds of music because my core music has always been heavy metal since I was a kid. And I was always looking from like the 90s onwards for other kinds of rock music that wasn't necessarily heavy metal, but had something of the spirit of that music that I like. And whoever it was that told me to check out AFI, I'm thinking it was probably one of the younger people at the record store played it in store. Something about it grabbed me. And I think it's that combination of the punky attitude, the modern, for me, what was considered this modern punky attitude, this kind of emo darkness, but yet these riffs that if you took these riffs and maybe repeated them a bit more or a bit more slowly, maybe they would have worked on a Black Sabbath, a Judas Priest. There was a connection there. Somebody at that time described it as punk metal. And I don't know that I think that's probably too general, but there's something of punk and there's something of metal in this album, and that's what jumped out at me. I know what you mean about the image. It was kind of like outside my comfort zone with the bangs that covered half of the face.
Yeah.
But it's always good to stretch your boundaries, and I was very much trying to do that in that period of time because as a guy in his 30s surrounded by people that are younger than me, it's like when in Rome.
Yeah, totally. Nice.
Yeah, so that's my history, and then I just recently, in the last month, have been listening to it a lot.
Mhm.
So that's how you and I came across this show idea.
Yeah. So let's do a little, I guess we can call it album housekeeping, the facts. So this is the sixth album from AFI. I have previously listened to all of their albums up until this point, and as a band, they start out very typical kind of skate punk, no tempo changes, no rhythm changes, pretty rough recordings for their first two albums, but pretty standard. And then they do get a little more kind of gothic, a little more horror punk, as it were, kind of a Misfits influence coming in as it goes. But this album, there's maybe a hint of it on the one that comes right before this, but this is a massive change for the band. It was recorded in Los Angeles, California in 2002 and 2003, produced by Jerry Finn and Butch Vig, and it's the last album they released under Nitro Records. And then there's three singles. We'll do that when we go through in order. But why don't we just go, track for track? If we can count the first one as a track, I don't know, the Miseria Cantera, the beginning, which, it's
Right.
a nice, I guess, soundscape, ambient introduction, but it's, not so much a song, as it were.
I agree. I think I called it like a partial song, a
Yeah.
half song in my review, something like that. Um, this one here, the hook, is this really thick. There's a lot of these thick kind of gang vocals. Love, your hate, your faith lost. You are now one of us.
Yeah.
And it's this heavy, heavy, like it sounds like 100 people. And that's dark. There's a lot of darkness, but it's a hook.
Yeah.
And in my review, I kept remarking about how hooky this album is. In fact, I had to go back and revise my review because I used the word hook like 17 times and I had to find some other words. So that's going to be a recurring theme here. There's hooks on this album.
Yeah, and that's kind of what blew me away is it's hooks, but I mean, like a Judas Priest, actually, how you brought up, songs will have multiple catchy riffs. It's not just the one that kind of brings you in. There's a few kind of catchy riffs throughout. That goes to the second track on the album and the second single from the album, the Leaving Song Part Two, again with a very kind of contemporary name. It sounds very artistic and just a catchy song. I can see why it would have been chosen as a single. Um, Probably it's not one of my favorite songs on the album, but I totally get why you would have picked it for a single. It's just again catchy number. I think it's good where it is on the album. Kind of gets you into the album. I think not one of my favorites, but it gets you in the mood for the rest of the album.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little slower than some of the faster tracks here that I like a lot more. But it is, like you said, it's a good choice for a single because it is a bit slower. It's not as pedal to the metal as we'll get.
Yeah,
But there again, it's full of these hooks. And even though for me I would have preferred a faster song in this spot, it's got a lot of hooks and Davy's performance is fantastic. Um, I mentioned in my review as well that leaving seems to be a recurring theme in this album. I wouldn't call it a concept album, but sort of the song titles and the way that they're almost progressive rock in nature,
yeah,
they almost imply that it could be a song a concept album. I'll also just point out though the booklet's fantastic. Look at that little bat.
yeah.
Isn't that nice? A
And
really
we'll
great
and we'll, yeah,
packaging.
and we'll get to that booklet too later when we get into the hidden tracks, which In this
Yeah.
digital age, something that we miss out on, the hidden track. So we'll get there. Track three is Bleed Black. I like this one a lot. I don't have too much to say about it. It's a bit longer, just over 4 minutes, which, for an emo punk band, it's lengthy-ish. Um, I like this one a lot. I think I would have swapped it position-wise for the leading song, but I don't have too much to say about that one because I think it's sort of sandwiched between two more prominent songs from the band.
Prominent perhaps, but I think this should have been a single. That hook of if you listen, listen, listen,
Mhm.
listen close, and then beat by beat.
Yeah.
The way that AFI combined these melody lines, which, if you put that listen, listen, if you put that in a pop song, you could have a hit with that by, I don't know, who's popular today. Sabrina Carpenter is a name that I read.
Sure. Yeah.
um, but if you put that in there in a pop song, you've got a hook, but then they follow it with this, the heavier beat, bop, beat, which is more the punk thing. And Davey uses like, I don't know, two, three, four different voices on this album. And the Bleed Black has a lot of that variety. There might not be a lot of variety within the songwriting. There's a lot of songs that are kind of formulaic with the riff, the hook, the riff, but the variety comes a lot of the time from Davies' performances.
That's one thing I noted too. I just wrote a small review for Rate Your Music, and same thing. Just there's the aggressive kind of more metal vocals, and what would have been at home with a lot of the alternative metal stuff from the early 2000s. You do have the more like not falsetto, but kind of more pop oriented, higher register vocals too. Which again, maybe it's something like Judas Priest would have felt more at home. And then you do have the more kind of straight ahead punk, gang vocals, stuff like that, which is really impressive for kind of what they were going for and the albums previous to this one. The next track is the third single from the album, Silver and Cold. This one, for me, I'm lukewarm on it. I'm not cold on it, but I'm kind of lukewarm. It's not one of my favorites. I think as an album, we kind of start a little slow, and then it's the middle of the album into the ending that kind of does it for me. But it's an okay song. How about you?
I like this one, although it's back to that slower AFI. One thing about this album, and I keep having to go to my lyric sheet to make sure I've got the right song, is that the hook is very rarely the song title. So in this one, I think of it as the hook, which is your sins into me. And it's got that chorus. And you can picture if they were playing this song live, you'd be into it. You'd be into the flow. Um, I'm guessing that we're kind of on the same wavelength, though, that you and I kind of prefer the faster tunes.
Exactly, yeah. Which we're
Yeah.
gonna get to, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah. In
Because we
fact,
get
I
right
think we're
into
about to get
dancing.
to one.
Yeah, we get to Dancing Through Sunday, which for me is like, okay, now we're cooking, now we're going somewhere with this. Not to say, I think, what makes this album worth talking about is that there are those dynamics that you wouldn't have gotten. But generally speaking, yeah, I'm drawn to the more faster, more energetic music like Dancing Through Sunday. It's a shorter song, 2.5 minutes. So I think that's kind of an indication of, it is more of a standard, catchy, kind of more simple, but maybe a little more energetic of a track.
Yeah, and this one is a standout for one reason, which is this is 2003. Do you remember what album came out by a major, major metal band in 2003? A little album called Saint Anger.
Yeah.
And what was, aside from the snare drum sound, what was one
Mhm.
thing Saint Anger was famous for? No guitar solos. So
Yeah.
here on this AFI album, we have the first and only guitar solo by Jade Pouget. Is it Pouget or Pougette? I'm not sure.
I would guess
I watched
Bridget.
an interview with him yesterday, and all he said was, "Hi, I'm Jade from AFI." And I'm like, "Damn it!"
No last name. Yeah.
Anyway, he's a really talented guitar player. I will tell you that.
Mhm.
I'm a crap guitar player, but I know talent when I hear it. And this guy, he's just got those magical fingers. He's just a great at writing riffs and performing guitar solos. There's hammer-ons, there's all kinds of cool rock stuff.
Yeah.
There's you know there's all that stuff going on in the middle of this punk song.
Yeah.
And that's cool. And that's cool. And for that reason, I'm going to say something controversial here, folks.
Mhm.
For that reason, this is a better album than Saint Anger. No,
Wow.
that's not really controversial, is it?
No.
No.
Uh yeah, Saint Anger. That's an album.
Yeah.
An album.
But that album is probably, in my opinion, less metal than this.
Yeah, I've even listened to on YouTube, you can find people, they rework the drums to say it's fixed. And but even listening to it with reworked drums, you're like, no, it's still not. still not, still not great, you know.
No, no.
Um, yeah. From Dancing Through Sunday, we get to the first single, which was Girls Not Gray, which I really like as a song. I think it's certainly really kind of really pop oriented in terms of the chorus and how it's formatted, but I like it. It works really well. It's the halfway point in the album. Super catchy song. I like it. For me, it's not my favorite song on the album, but it's the song I remember the most. If I think about this album, it's the song that I think of first.
It's not for me, but it's definitely one of them. There's a cool music video for this with almost like a Tim Burton kind of animation going on.
Yeah.
I like this song a lot. Yeah, I'd put it among my favorites on the album, honestly. I'm just trying to remember what the hook is for this, but it doesn't really matter. I know I like the song. I know and it's not it's in that pocket of the fast and the slow. It's right
Yeah.
down the middle.
Yeah, exactly. I think if I was going to pick something for a first single, probably go with Girls Not Great. It's kind of
Yeah,
got a bit of everything on this album. Good introduction.
I'm
From
with
there,
you.
we go to Death of Seasons, another good one. I didn't have too many notes on this one, just like, I like it. Let's keep going. Which is not super helpful. But I do like that as a song because for me, again, the album kind of starts a little meandering and then it gets a little more focused as things go on. A lot of my favorite songs are the ones at the end of the album. How about you? How about Death of Seasons?
So I was listening to this album a lot this week and in the car and whatnot. And I really like this one song, this one hook from the song. I held a falling star and it wept for me, dying. I really like that hook. And I was like, does that come back later on the album in a slower form? I was like, I could hear it in my head
Mhm.
as a slower, more mournful version. And I feel like maybe towards the end of one of the bonus tracks, that hook might recur, but I'm not sure. It's in my head, is the
Yeah.
point. It's in my head. And it's changing in my head to other
Mhm.
forms. And it's just a great song. Just a
Yeah.
great song.
And you noted there's kind of, obviously there's nothing prog about this album anywhere, but you kind of talk about the song titles. They're a little more, mature than standard punk stuff. And maybe there's a bit of that too with themes reoccurring and not just, samey songs, but bringing up a melody again. Could be.
Concept like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely not a concept album, but we're getting there. There's like a theme. It's a theme album, I guess.
That's funny you should say that because I use that word myself with a lot of albums, such as Iron Maiden, Somewhere in Time, where time is a
Mhm.
recurring theme, but not a concept. Theme album. That should be an official thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a theme album because there's definitely, and it's not just a tone or a mood. Like there's an artistic direction to the album, which is
It's not just a tone or a mood, but it is also a tone and a mood for sure. It's
yeah,
all of this stuff is what we're saying.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And then from here we get into kind of my favorite chunk of the album is sort of track 8 until the end. We go to the Great Disappointment, which is the longest song on here at 5.5 minutes, which for a lot of the music we listen to isn't that long, but for a band, especially the audience they were catering for, radio at the time, pop punk, 3 minutes is kind of the sweet spot. So to go 5.5, it's a bit lengthier, but I like this song a lot. How about you?
You're right. I'm just looking at my booklet here, and the
Yeah.
next three songs in a row, it's like bang, bang, bang. I don't have that much to add to what you just said. I love this
Mhm.
song as well. Um, each one, it sounds like they're all grown from the same tree, but each one has its own hooks. And Great Disappointment. I'm not going to subject the audience to more singing, but just trust me
Yeah,
on
yeah.
it.
We don't want to get marked. We don't want to get YouTube straight.
Right,
We're too good. Yeah,
right, right.
of course. For me, it's actually the next track. That's my favorite on the album, Paper
Okay.
Airplanes. That's my favorite one on here. I think it's just so different. I don't know if that's why I like it so much. It feels a little bit different and separate from the rest. Um, and I think I talk about this in some other reviews I've written about totally different bands, but bands that just get sequencing right. Like they just put the album together really well. And for me, when you're at your last two songs of an album, you want to kind of play this middle game between energy, like you want to, give people energy to finish out the album, but you also want to have something a little bit different to be like, okay, we're kind of winding down. We're going to do something a bit different. Um, And I think I would have, swapped some songs around here, but I think it ends incredibly strong. And to me, Paper Airplanes is the first kind of, okay, we're starting to wind down. Here's something a little bit unique.
You know, it's funny because you said that's your favorite song in the album, and the next song is my favorite song in the album.
Nice.
But yeah, I agree with everything you said about Paper Airplanes. Again, I don't have much to add. I will say though, I haven't spent a lot of time like tearing apart the lyrics and reading the lyric sheet,
Mhm.
but these are dark songs. Like musically, there's some brightness to each one, but lyrically, we're in dark places.
And I wonder for me too if that's potentially another reason why I wasn't quite as drawn to it at the time. I would have been listening to bands like Rancid and No Effects and that kind of more straight ahead, more pop punk, Green Day, stuff like that, which maybe once in a while they have some, heavier themes or something, but for the most part it's songs about partying and girls and going out late with your friends or whatever. Not harder emotional topics, which maybe as you get older are a little more relevant in your life at the time. So that's a good song there. But why don't we get into your favorite song, The Celluloid Dream?
It's that one hook, that cinematic. Oh, I promised I wouldn't sing. The Celluloid Dream. It's great. It is great. It's my favorite chorus on the album. It's just a banger. And then it has this other more punky section that, oh, gray.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It's like we each have our favorite songs for its own reasons, but I think for me, if I had to just simplify my reason, it's just that one cinematic hook. I just
Mhm.
absolutely love it. Just hits me in the spot. The production here, Butch Vig and Jerry Finn. Okay, so I mean, those are two big names. Butch Vig, obviously, we don't need to speak for its, that name speaks for itself. But Jerry Finn, check out those credits too. Imagine the two of them working together. No wonder this album sounds sonically so good. Um, I don't like. I'm not an aficionado when it comes to AFI. I should be. I want to explore more music, but these guys can play. I haven't really touched on the drumming, but there's some freaking incredible drumming going on here. You can tell that I don't. Maybe I should read the booklet, or maybe we can do an edit here. But the drummer is absolutely. You can tell he's schooled,
Yeah. It's an
and
impressive band. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's why, as a metalhead, a lot of this stuff is connecting with me because there's so many common threads between the music that I love and what these guys are putting out.
Exactly. And I think if we're talking about tone, kind of talked earlier, I don't know if I'd call them, metal punk. For me, I think of those bands as the crossover bands like Municipal Waste or Suicidal Tendencies, the ones that have a bit more of a thrash influence.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think tonally they kind of have a great elements of both, metal, what makes metal such an addictive genre and such a powerful genre, with punk. Like I think they get that really well of like what makes a metal album feel triumphant. Quite often when you listen to
Yeah,
hard rock and metal, you feel good about it. Like it's very empowering music.
you
Um,
just said it.
yeah, and I
Yep,
think they get that on here. Yeah,
nailed it. Absolutely. As soon as you said the word triumphant, I'm like, that's the word. Yep,
yeah. Like
100%. And I get
it's
that out of Celluloid Dream.
it's interesting. A lot of time people, they think hard rock and metal, it's angry music or sad music, and it's like I don't know. When I listen to a lot of metal, it's happy music a lot of the time. It feels good. It kind of it lets you know that what you're going through, we all have kind of thing. Like that's how I feel
It's
when I
not
listen to it.
popular. It's not popular because it makes you feel bad. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly. All right, now we go into the last song, the last real song,
Right.
aptly named "The Leaving Song." This one I have mixed thoughts about. I think just because the paper airplanes and celluloid dream are such big tracks that to kind of wind down in this smaller way, it kind of takes a bit of the wind out of the sails. But I also wonder, I don't know if I would pick, like, I can't think of a better way to end it. Like, would I move the leaving song somewhere else on the album? I don't know. But yeah, would I leave it off? I don't know if I do that. So I don't know what I would do with it. It's an okay song, but I have mixed feelings about it. How about you?
I don't have mixed feelings about it.
Okay.
I don't know. It's hard to describe in terms of flow what that does to me. But when it fades in with that very, very spare guitar part and then Davey just saying walked away, it's very haunting.
Yeah.
And I love the way that it ends, sort of like the main sequence of songs.
Okay, yeah.
Um, a lot of my favorite concept albums kind of end, I'm not going to say on a bum note or a downer note,
Mhm.
but they end on, some of them end on a quieter note. Marillion's Brave would be an example of that. I like it. Yeah, I like it a lot. And if you don't like the album ending that way, that's okay because AFI have some CD era tricks up their sleeves.
Yeah, one of those. And just listening to the CD, I haven't listened to many CDs lately that have hidden tracks on them that I know of.
Yeah,
I guess I'd have to explore. But it just brought me right back to, I was like, oh, I miss hidden tracks. Because even on vinyl, I mean, you can physically see the music, right? So you're not going to get a hidden track there. There's tricky ways around that, but generally, yeah, there's
yes,
no hidden tracks. But on a CD, sometimes I would just skip around on a CD, be like, oh, this song is 10 minutes long. There's got to be something on here. Um, so this one you have two. So
yes.
you have But Home is Nowhere. So you have the spoken word and This Time Imperfect. Um, which you do get well, I guess not lyrics, you get the words for these poems in the booklet as well. Which was my first kind of hint. I was looking through the booklet and I was like, are these lyrics? I don't think these are lyrics. And then I was doing more research and then I got to the hidden tracks and I went, oh, okay. Um, so for me, it's just a treat to have it. It just brought me right back to like hidden tracks. It's just something you can't really do streaming wise, right? You you see the list of songs you're listening to right there on the screen or your phone or whatever. Um, so whether or not I like this or not, but I do. But whether or not I did, bonus points for having hidden tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, just as a personal anecdote, the most bizarre hidden track are the ones that are in the pre-track before track one, where you
Yes.
actually have to hit play and then start rewinding.
Yeah.
Blind Melon's Soup is one original CD, if you can find one that has the pre-track hidden track. But this is more straightforward, which is there's a
Yeah.
final track and there's actually three within the one, which 15 minutes, there's actually not much gap between the bits, which sometimes on some albums it's like 10 minutes of gap.
Yeah.
Like Tea Party, the second album, The Edge of Twilight, I think it's called Edges of Twilight, something like that. It's like you have to skip 7 or 8 minutes, but you can, if you want to transfer your tracks to the digital age and put them in Audacity, you can trim out your gap, which is what I've done with some, but AFI didn't do that to us. There's not a lot of gap to worry about, and I kind of look at these three tracks as one.
Yeah.
I kind of look at them that way. Maybe it's just because it's the way my player happens to always play them. We start off sort of in that slow and haunting. I think there's some piano. Can't remember exactly now because those tracks do tend to blur together a
Yeah.
bit. But I mean, it's very not just concept albumy to have this long dramatic outro with different moods and different sections, but it's also very 2003. It's
Exactly.
almost like AFI were children of that era, and they kind of maybe were inspired by certain things,
Yeah.
but they didn't slavishly avoid all these sort of pompous elements of progressive rock when they're in 2003 and that kind of stuff was considered passe. So yeah, I think it's a great way to end the CD. And I know there are different import versions with different track breakups,
Yeah.
but this particular North American version, that's how it ends. And I actually do want to check out some of those imports to get some of the extra tracks too, which I haven't heard.
Yeah. And I think the best part about this album is that it makes me want to go back to listen to more AFI.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
the early catalog, much more punky, gets a little more kind of Misfits influence with that horror punk, but it does even make me want to continue. And I know they do get criticized for being even more poppy, even more saccharine with their next album, December Underground, I believe it's called. But it still makes me curious, and I think that's the best compliment you can give a band or an album is you want to hear more. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't, but it's got something in there for you. And this album does that for me. So as we're wrapping up, do you have any final thoughts on this album?
Just that when I did my written review, I rated it 5 out of 5 stars and I called it a masterpiece. And I still stand by that. I too would like to check out more AFI. It's bizarre that since 2003, this is still the only one that I own.
Mhm.
But, the attention wanders, right? I mean, shortly after this came out, heavy metal really did come back in a roaring way. Iron Maiden had already done their comeback. Judas Priest was about to. And I just kind of refocused myself back onto metal, especially when I left that retail environment in 2006 because I wasn't forced to listen to popular music anymore. So I really made a hard left turn right back into my 80s roots. And I guess for that reason, I never did explore AFI. But now that I'm older and I'm meeting folks like yourself and other people in this wonderful community, I'm interested in sort of picking up where I left off. And stay tuned, folks, because we might be talking about AFI again in the near future. You never know. You
There
never
could be
know.
more. Yeah, it's great.
Yep.
I just looked it up too. So Tool had their album Lateralis that came out 2 years before this one. I think it's that they probably all have hidden tracks on them, but I seem to remember that one had like a half-hour hidden track with like a 23-minute gap. It may have been that album or the one before it. I don't quite remember.
Are you familiar with the Broken EP by Nine Inch Nails?
Yes. Yeah.
99 tracks with
Yeah.
98 and 99 being the songs.
Exactly. Yeah. That seems like that's a great video idea. Someone's got a YouTube. I'm sure it's out there of hidden tracks and all that.
Yeah.
But with that, we're kind of winding down. Do you have any future videos or projects you'd like to promote?
Actually, not a lot right now, just that we are still doing on my channel 50 Years of Iron Maiden. As of this recording time, we just finished off Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Yeah.
So that was part 12 of our series. And we are going to continue. We're going to take breaks. So it's not every week. But if you are an Iron Maiden fan, by all means, please come over to Grab a Stack of Rock and check out our 50 Years of Iron Maiden series hosted by Harrison Kopp. And we'll sprinkle in some other just random episodes too. I want to have Darcy on my channel. It's well overdue. Actually, almost exactly a year ago, Darcy was scheduled to be on my channel to do an Arkells episode on their latest album, Disco Loadout. And unfortunately, he had a prior engagement that he was far more important than a YouTube show. But we still want to get Darcy on. He's like the only guy that I've known this long that I haven't had on my show. So,
Yeah.
so we're gonna do it. We are gonna
Yeah.
do it.
Love it. Yeah, I just watched last night the Seventh Son episode. Lots of fun with bicycle legs.
Yeah,
Seventh Son might be my favorite Iron Maiden album. It's up there.
cool. Well, I
It's
hope we did it justice for you.
yeah, I've been really enjoying the series, especially going into the live albums, going into the bootlegs, especially Harrison in the bootlegs. So, you look at this show and this show, and swap this song out, and you can tell that you're all fans, which is awesome. It's not
That's
just
yeah.
learning, right? Yeah, it's great.
It's all from the heart. And
Yeah,
sometimes from the heart involves tough love.
yeah,
And in the coming episodes, unfortunately, Iron Maiden may
yeah,
have some tough love coming to them from Harrison and I.
yeah. The band's gonna go through a rough period for a little bit,
Yes.
but,
Yes.
it'll pick up again.
Depending on when you
Eventually.
watch this, we are about to run aground a bit.
Yes, certainly. Well, with that, thank you so much for coming on. And for everyone watching, thank you so much for watching. And we will catch you next time. Bye.